Virgo, you did not set out to upset anyone. That is the thing I want to say first before anything else, because I think it is the most accurate way to frame what this reading is actually about. The upset that is circling you right now is not the result of anything you did wrong. It is not the consequence of bad behavior or poor judgment or any of the things that typically produce genuine conflict in a person's life. It is the specific involuntary byproduct of something you did right, of something you built or became or arrived at that other people were quietly counting on never fully materializing for you. And it materialized. That is the entire story. You won something, you became something, you arrived somewhere, and the people who had organized some portion of their internal reality around the assumption that you would not are now facing the uncomfortable task of reorganizing that reality. The upset is theirs. The discomfort is theirs. The resentment, the maneuvering, the specific pointed attention that you are now receiving from directions you perhaps did not anticipate, all of theirs. And I want to be very clear about this because I think the way Virgo sometimes processes being the object of other people's frustration is to immediately begin reviewing its own conduct for what might have caused it, to turn the careful analytical gaze inward and run through every possible scenario in which the upset is actually deserved. It is not deserved. What is happening is not a response to a mistake. It is a response to a success. And there is a specific way of holding that truth that will determine whether this period becomes genuinely destabilizing or whether it simply becomes what it actually is, which is the noise that accompanies having moved into a position that some people did not expect you to reach. Let me show you what the cards confirmed about all of this. Let me describe what I felt the moment I opened this energy, because the first impression was immediate and it had a quality I do not encounter in every reading. I felt heat, not the warmth of something comfortable or the fire of something creative, the specific heat of friction, of two surfaces in contact that are not entirely compatible, the temperature that gets generated when attention that is charged with something other than goodwill presses up against someone it cannot fully get traction on. That is the quality of what is circling you right now. Charged attention from more than one direction, carrying more than one variety of feeling, but none of it operating from a place of genuine neutrality. I also felt, underneath that heat, something considerably more interesting. I felt your stillness, not the forced stillness of someone working very hard to appear unbothered, the genuine stillness of someone who is, at some level they may not have fully named to themselves yet, not entirely surprised, as though some part of you had been expecting this, had known that arriving where you have arrived would produce this specific quality of response and had quietly prepared for it without making that preparation explicit even to yourself. That stillness is real and it is yours, and it is one of the most important things you have going for you right now. The first card in this reading arrived in the position representing what you have actually done, the concrete achievement that is the cause of the current turbulence. And I want to describe it specifically because understanding it clearly is essential for understanding everything else. This card shows a single figure at an absolute summit, wand raised, the posture of genuine, completed arrival at the highest point of a particular trajectory. The card belongs to the fire element, to the suite of action and will and creative force, and it sits at the number that represents the fullness of achievement within that suite. Not the beginning of something and not the middle of it, but the specific point where the climb has been completed and the view from the top is full and unobstructed. What I am reading in this card is something I want to say precisely. You have arrived somewhere, not been placed there, not accidentally wandered into it, not benefited from luck alone. Arrived through your own sustained effort, your own real capability, your own willingness to keep going through every stage that came before this one. The achievement is real. The position is real. And its reality is exactly what is producing the response you are receiving. I also want to speak to the view from this card summit because it matters for how you hold what is happening around you right now. From this height, certain things become visible that were not visible from below, including the people who were invested in you remaining below, including the specific architecture of who was comfortable with you as long as you were aspirational rather than arrived, who could support your potential with genuine warmth, because potential does not yet threaten anything, but who find your actuality considerably more complicated to navigate. You have moved from potential to actuality. That is what this card is describing. And actuality, as opposed to potential, produces a different quality of response from the people around you. The second card arrived in the position representing the specific nature of the reaction you are receiving, and I want to be honest about what it showed me without softening it more than necessary. This card shows 5 figures in a chaotic scene, wands raised and crossing, a kind of competitive confrontation that does not have a single clear cause, but that has a quality of diffuse, unfocused opposition to it, of multiple people directing energy in your direction from angles that are not entirely transparent. This is the card of rivalry, of competitive friction, of the specific quality of opposition that arises not from a single clear grievance, but from a general sense among several parties that something is not how they want it to be. What I am sensing in this card is something I want to name carefully. Not all of the attention pointed at you right now is coming from the same place or for the same reason. Some of it is competition, some of it is envy, some of it is the specific discomfort of someone who had positioned themselves in relation to you in a particular way, perhaps as your superior or your equal or your advisor, and who now finds that positioning has shifted in a direction they did not choose and cannot fully reverse. Some of it may simply be the general resistance that tends to accumulate around anyone who is visibly doing well in a field where visibility is limited and resources are finite. The common thread is not the nature of the feeling, it is the direction of the attention. Multiple people, multiple varieties of response, all pointed at you for the same fundamental reason, which is that you have done something they had not fully accounted for in their internal models of how things were going to unfold. I also want to speak to what this card is not describing, because I think this matters. The opposition here is not organized. It is not coordinated. It does not have a plan or a clear strategy for how it intends to affect you. It is diffuse, somewhat reactive, somewhat improvised, which means it is considerably less powerful than it might feel if you encounter it head on. Diffuse friction, while unpleasant, does not have the coherent force of a single directed opposition. It dissipates as you simply continue moving forward through it. Does this feel like something you have been experiencing, Virgo? The specific quality of finding that your success has produced a kind of turbulence in certain relationships or environments that you did not fully anticipate. Leave me a comment. I want to hear what this is mapping onto for you specifically. The third card arrived in the position I read as what specifically belongs to you in this moment, what is actually yours in the middle of all of this noise. And it is the card I want to give the most warmth to because I think you need to receive it fully. This card shows a figure seated on a throne that is elaborate and clearly established, holding the specific emblem of mastery at its fullest expression, surrounded by the architecture of something that has been genuinely built and that is not going anywhere. This is the card of solid, grounded, fully matured authority in the practical and material domain. It sits at the pinnacle of its suit, at the highest court position, representing someone who has moved through every preceding stage and arrived at the complete embodiment of what this element produces in its most developed form. And this card is describing you, not who you are becoming, not the version of you that will exist at some future point when various things have been further established. You, right now, in this specific period of your life, carrying the specific accumulation of what you have built, what you know, what you have demonstrated, what exists in the world as a record of your actual capability exercised over real time. I want to speak to why this card is so specifically relevant to the question of being a prize. Because the language of that phrase, "you are the prize," is often applied in a vague and slightly wishful sense, as encouragement rather than as description. This card is not giving me vague encouragement. It is giving me a precise description of someone who has arrived at genuine, substantive, demonstrable value in the material world, the specific kind of value that produces a very clear-eyed understanding in the people who have their own genuine capability, that you are worth pursuing, worth aligning with, worth competing for the opportunity to be in relationship with, whether that relationship is professional or personal or both. The haters are mad because the people with actual discernment are paying attention. I also want to say something about the specific quality of what this card describes that tends to be most invisible to the person it describes, because I think it is particularly invisible to you right now. The court figure at the pinnacle of the earth suit is not remarkable simply because of what they have achieved. They are remarkable because of what they have become in the process of achieving it. The process of building something real changes you. It produces in you a quality of reliability, of follow-through, of knowing what you are about, that is palpable to anyone who encounters you even briefly. That quality is not something you can manufacture or perform. It is the specific residue of sustained, genuine, uncompromised effort. And it is what makes you genuinely, specifically worth the pursuit that is currently producing all of this noise around you. Inhale with me, Virgo. Because the fourth card is the one that I think is going to land most specifically, and I want you to be fully present for it. This card shows a figure with two cups extended, one in each direction, a balanced offering to multiple parties, the quality of someone who has genuine abundance available and who is in the position of being able to make choices about how to distribute it. This card's number sits in the early part of its suit, at a position of fresh but genuine emotional richness, of real feeling in its initial and undiluted form. And in the specific context of this reading, I want to speak to what it is describing about your situation with great care. I am sensing that what other people are upset about is not an abstraction, it is specific. Someone, perhaps several someones, wants to be in the position of the person you choose, of the person who receives your particular quality of attention and devotion and investment, whether in a professional or personal sense. And the reason this is producing the specific heat that is currently circling you is that there is genuine competition for it, genuine desire, genuine awareness on the part of multiple parties of what your choice and your endorsement and your genuine engagement are actually worth. This card in this position is telling me that you are operating in an environment where your genuine interest is a currency, where what you actually choose to invest in or align with or give your real attention to carries weight. And the people who are upset are the ones who either did not expect to be competing for it or who have found that the competition is more meaningful than they anticipated. I also want to speak to what the two cups in this card suggest about your own position in this dynamic. You have options, real ones. The current turbulence around you is the sound of more than one party trying to position themselves as the most deserving of what you have to offer. And while that turbulence is uncomfortable, the underlying reality it reflects is that you are someone whose investment others are willing to work for. That is a real and specific kind of power, and it belongs to you. I want to address something about the specific experience of being the object of envy or competitive attention as a Virgo, because it tends to produce a particular internal response that I think is worth naming. Virgo does not typically enjoy being the object of competitive attention or resentment, not because you are conflict averse exactly, but because you are fairness oriented, and the specific feeling of being targeted for something you cannot justify as a mistake produces a particular kind of discomfort. The sense that you should be able to explain or resolve the friction rationally, that if you could simply make it clear that you have not intended to harm anyone or take anything that was theirs, the friction would dissolve. It will not dissolve that way. And I want to be honest about why the friction is not based on a misunderstanding that can be corrected with better communication. The friction is based on the fact that you have something and they want it, or that you are somewhere and they wanted to be there, or that you have been chosen and they wanted to be chosen. That specific variety of friction does not respond to explanation or clarification or good faith negotiation. It responds to time and to you continuing to be exactly what you are without apology or modification, and to the weight of ongoing reality eventually making the case on your behalf more effectively than any explanation you could provide in the short term. Your job right now is not to manage their reaction. It is to continue being what you have become. The fifth card arrived in the position of what is genuinely ahead, the direction this is all moving, regardless of the current noise. And it is a card that I want to deliver with the full force of its imagery because I think you deserve to receive it clearly. This card shows a great wheel turning, surrounded by figures that ascend on one side and descend on the other, with the Sphinx at the apex representing the governing principle of the whole mechanism. This is one of the most significant forces in the entire deck, operating at the level of large, structural, impersonal turning rather than personal circumstance. And what it is pointing toward in this specific position of your reading is something worth naming explicitly. The wheel is turning in your favor, not as a consolation or future maybe, as a current, ongoing, structural reality. The figure on the ascending side of this wheel is not someone who might be you eventually. It is you now, in this period, already in the upward arc of something that has been building for long enough that the momentum is real and not easily reversed. What this card tends to indicate about the people who are currently directing their competitive attention toward you is something that might bring you a quiet, grounded sense of perspective. The figures on the descending side of the wheel are not there because of anything you have done to them. They are there because that is how the wheel works. And the specific reason they are making noise as they descend is that descent is uncomfortable, particularly when it coincides with watching someone else ascend who they perhaps believed was not going to You do not have to do anything to accelerate their descent. The wheel does not require your participation. It turns on its own. Your only job is to keep doing what has gotten you to the ascending arc, which is the real, grounded, substantive work that produced the arrival this entire reading has been circling. I want to speak to something else. This card tends to reveal that I think is specifically relevant to your situation. The wheel turning produces a very particular experience for the person on the ascending side that is different from anything they experienced during the climb itself. During the climb, you could feel the effort. You knew at every point exactly what it was costing you, how much further there was to go, what the friction of moving upward through resistance felt like. On the ascending arc of the wheel, the sensation is different. It is less effortful, not effortless, because maintaining what you have built and continuing to develop it still requires real engagement. But there is a quality of things beginning to move with you rather than against you, of the direction of the wind finally aligning with the direction you have been moving, of circumstance beginning to cooperate with what you have been trying to build rather than complicating it at every turn. That specific change in how things feel, from effortful to increasingly aligned, is something I am sensing you are beginning to notice. It is not your imagination. It is the wheel doing exactly what it does. Before I close, I want to say something directly about being someone's prize, because I think this phrase carries something important that deserves to be received fully rather than deflected. Being a prize is not about passivity. It is not about sitting still and waiting to be claimed. It is the specific active quality of being genuinely worth pursuing, of carrying something real that others recognize and that produces in them the motivation to make real effort in your direction. Being a prize means that your yes means something, that your engagement is not casual, that what you bring when you actually commit is the kind of thing people work toward rather than simply stumbling into. The haters are mad because the prize turned out to be real, because the potential they perhaps privately discounted turned out to be actual capability that produced actual results, that produced an actual arrival at an actual position that they now have to reckon with. The madness is not your problem to solve. It is the inevitable byproduct of a specific quality of success, the quality that is visible enough and real enough to produce genuine response in the people around it. You won, Virgo. The noise you are hearing is what winning sounds like from the outside when the people who did not win are paying attention. Keep going. If this reading named something you have been experiencing, the specific texture of succeeding in a way that has produced friction from unexpected directions, please share it with a Virgo who might be confused about why their good news is producing this kind of response, and leave a comment. I want to hear what this is mapping onto for you and how the turbulence is showing up in your specific situation. I read every single comment and I hold what is shared in this community with genuine care long after this video ends. Until next time, Virgo, the upset is theirs, the win is yours, and no amount of noise changes that. Keep going.